What it is, y'all, it's your old boy Pilk, and I'm coming back today with more Danmachi, and today we're going to be talking specifically about the new Data Life collab that's coming in. As you guys know, it's not a rerun, but kind of part of this is, I want to discuss, is there going to be a rerun? Because we're like now going to be 3 weeks behind JP on this. And a lot of people said maybe there's going to be a part 2. I don't know, I haven't seen the story yet. I kind of doubt it, but maybe. But let's take all things into consideration here, okay? And first things first, the biggest part of this would be comparing the old Data Live units to more recent modern units. And to do so, I'm gonna grab the eyes from the Data Live event. I believe this is her right here, Devil Princess eyes. And if we kind of max her out, okay? We could take a look at the numbers, we could take a look at the skills, we could take a look at the passives. The passives would be the biggest part of this. But we can kind of compare what we've got now to what we had back then. So eyes here very specifically, HP is 3827, which ain't bad. That's, a modern unit definitely would have that kind of HP. Physical attack 1853 really ain't gonna cut it in this day and age. We'd need at least 200, maybe even 300 more physical attack, but that's something that they could work on with a rebalance. MP 256, it is what it is. She's a physical unit, she doesn't need that much MP. Now here's where we get endurance is good. Dex would need a little bit of work, but that agility, unless you just want her to be a really slow unit, that agility is completely out the window. That's the one that would need the biggest buff here. Okay, and if you kind of want to compare, we can grab the most recent eyes and compare her. So let's grab this one. Let's go ahead and give her max stats. And numbers-wise, her HP is very similar, 3845, close enough. I always say trying to get to that 4K mark is like the sweet spot, but it is what it is. MP 289, once again, not terribly far off, but that physical attack, 2113. We had like 1823 on the last one, and nah. We would need a lot more physical attack. A lot more physical attack. Endurance 567. Actually, the endurance on the other one's better. But see, the dex is 817, where the other one it was like in the 600s. So not great. But the agility, her agility stat on the previous unit is about the same as the dex stat here. And agility now is in, the 11 to 1200s. So really, if you're going to upgrade units, you are absolutely going to need to do some major work. But that's really not the only piece of the puzzle here. So if I go back and give her max stats, you can kind of see all the numbers here. But the numbers only tell a small part of the story. We also need to look at the skills. And if you compare a skill on a modern unit to what we got here, let's look at her SA, okay? Foes plural, ultra dark physical attack with temporary strength boost, status buff down 2 turns. Okay? There's no percentage buffs there, there's no great strength boost. There's so much missing from this unit that a modern unit would have. In fact, if we compare the eyes we just had, I want to say, I'm not going to give her Ascension. See, look at the sheer difference in the length. Like, this is a full-on paragraph. The other one's like a sentence. So you can already tell, like, the units currently do so much more. But if we go back to her skills, that's a big part of this story. And this is just one unit. This isn't even talking about all the units. This is just one unit. So, those skills pretty lackluster. Skill 1 is a low dark physical attack with allies. Dark attack damage plus 25%. If that was going to be all allies, that'd need to be at least 50% to even be relevant in this day and age. Maybe 40%, but that would need a major boost. And it's a low dark physical attack. If she was going to have that, you'd have to give her the all allies. Or, I'm sorry, you'd have to give her the extra actions attack. Disingenerate. So, foes plural. High dark physical attack with temporary strength boost. HP, and max HP damage, poison, or max HP 25% damage. It's written weirdly, but basically, she has 25% damage with poison. That's a good stat. That's a really good stat. And being a high dark physical with foes plural would be nice. Now, there's a few things they could throw in there. That is going to need a tiny bit of tweaking, but as far as damage goes, it's not bad. They can even make that, like, 2 turns. But really, this is supposed to be her spammable skill. So, it's not too bad. But notice she still doesn't have a strength boost. So for this to really be, like, worthwhile, they need to give her, like, 70 to 80% strength along with that. Maybe even as low as 60% since she does an all allies stat up there. So, she's good, but she's not great. Like, you can quickly see where she's falling apart. No strength boost, only 25% dark attack damage. If you damage test her versus another unit today, it is going to be hilariously bad. Hilariously bad. Okay? And I always say the third skill and an AoE skill tends to be throwaway, and for her I don't see it being any better, so I'm not even going to cover her third skill. I'm going to cover the 2 main skills you're really going to care about. If they wanted to make this insane, they would give her like a 100% damage boost for when a unit is poisoned or something like that, and give poison like 2 turns, but generally, these are just throwaway skills. Now, that is one massive difference. She gets no love in the buffing department. None whatsoever. So this unit, and this is indicative of a lot of the units we would see in the original collab. And I want you to bear in mind, all the Data Live units have already been rebalanced once. This is her after a prior rebalance. To be fair, that rebalance was like 2 years ago. But still, these units, if they're going to come back, need a ton of love. Now, I'm going to do an apples-to-apples comparison here in just a moment of a unit that originally dropped with the rerun, and we'll kind of discuss that. But we're talking worst-case scenarios right now. Okay? Now, when we get into passives, this is where the biggest difference is going to be. Strength, 15%. Critical damage, 10%. Light resistance, 35%. That's not too bad. Attack. Agility and dex, 10%. Endurance, 15%. Those numbers are atrocious at this day and age. And her base attacks and her counters aren't even dark damage. So, let's go back to this eyes and let's take a look at her passives and just see what happens here. Doing the hero ascension isn't going to change the passives or even the skills. So, in fact, I don't even think taking her up to level 80 changed anything. But just to be on the safe side, I'd do it. So, Fire Manifestation. Wind resistance, 35%. Remember, that was the light resistance, 35%. When countering and attacking, she does a regular physical attack to that singular foe with a fire element attack. Every attack is fire element. This is what that other eyes needs. She needs all attacks to be dark physical. Strength, agility, and dex, 35%. Which you have, like 15% to like, 1 or 2 stats. Counter damage, 50%. Damage, 25% upon penetration. She had like 10%. And she's a material killer. The other one doesn't have a killer skill. But those are the biggest differences. You can see there are exponential percentage changes here. And on top of not having the dark and physical buffs, that other eyes is never, ever, ever going to produce a fraction of what a modern unit could do. So they would need some substantial buffs. But, apples to apples comparison, like I said, when the collab came back, we got a fresh, brand new unit that we had never had in the game before in this Katori. Now, let's look at her numbers, let's look at her skills, and let's look at her stats and do, once again, a comparison of a modern unit, okay? Will she hold up? HP right out of the gate is a bit low, but as we saw before, I don't think her HP stat's going to change. It could, it'd be really nice, but physical stat is 2020. That's really good. That holds up with current. Endurance 558 could hold up. Dex is a little low and agility is a little low. Those 2 stats got huge love over the past couple of years, but it's not groundbreaking. She could survive with these stats, but, it's not going to change the world. She can get 100 here and 200 here and still be fine, but I honestly don't think those stats are going to be a huge, huge, huge factor in the way this unit works. They might change a little bit, but we're really talking more of like a record buster, absolute unit here. Her HP could definitely get a buff. I would love to see her HP get another 200, 300 points, but, this is just like a what-if scenario. Now, skills-wise, her skills are pretty good. Ultra Fire physical attack damage 80% per each self-strength buff skill. That's a 160% overall buff, and self-MP heal 20%. Her SA still holds up. She was the top damage producer for what, like a year and change? She's nuts. And still today, with some of the other buffs out there, she still does good stuff. Not amazing stuff. She's not going to, she's not somebody that I'm going to pull out, dust off, and try to get good numbers with, but she'd be a fun one to run for certain events. Self, 30% HP regen, strength, heal, and fire attack damage plus 60%. Notice she gets a heal plus 60%. That's nice. I want to say it was one of the very first times we saw that. We hadn't seen that very much at all. I think we'd maybe seen like really low numbers, but we'd never seen 60% to herself. Allies, avoid KO once, only when HP is greater or equal to 10%. This skill is relevant today and needs nothing. Absolutely nothing. If you wanted to buff the MP heal, whatever, I don't think this skill needs to change at all. This skill is relevant and current, and has been replicated only about another two or three times since she's dropped. I think there's one other unit that did this prior to her, and this skill has maintained a staple. If they wanted to do anything, they could kill the MP cost. I don't think it's as special anymore as it used to be. When she first came out, I think she was only the second unit to ever do this. And it was a good skill. It was one of those things that kept you alive. But anymore, I think we've got plenty of things that do, far beyond what she's capable of. That said, it's still a very nice and relevant skill, even 2 years later. And this was just the power creep from one year to the next. You'll notice that, units don't look like they've fallen too far behind. But just wait, okay? Her big single is a super fire physical attack damage, 50% per each self-strength buff attack damage. Per each self-strength buff and damage received type single target plus 20%. That could get some love. That could be jumped up to like 60% or something like that. That isn't going to really produce, a crazy amount of damage today, but it's still a good skill, and you can kind of see where they could work with that and make that more relevant. So even from like 1 year to the next, I think this only ran like 16 to 18 months after the original one ran, we already had, darn near paragraph descriptions and all this stuff. Very good skills. You could kind of see where she's falling a little bit behind. But I get the feeling her passives are where the real difference is going to take place. And Bloom, HP and MP regen 10%, and that's good. That's actually really good. That's very substantial. Damage 20% upon penetration, and we've seen so much more these days. She should get, upon critical and penetration, each like 25% coming up. And that would really give her the buff she needs. Strength, agility, and dex 25%. We're up to like 35% now. So she's not that far behind, but it is going to make a major difference. She doesn't get any real other buffs other than the fact she's a beast killer. So her passives could use a little bit of work. But once again, she was like a top unit in her day. So we're taking Eyes, who was just kind of part of the course in her day, admittedly like 3.5 years ago, versus Katori, who was a top unit in her day for quite a bit of time. Basically, I want to say Lead was the unit that actually usurped her. So, there is still room to grow, as you've seen. Now, will we get a rerun? I'm going to say, most likely. I'm going to call it now and say, in all likelihood, we most likely will. I don't think they're going to drop another Data Live collab, especially considering, like, Shido's not in it. Shido's nowhere to be found. Toka's in the new one, Origami's in the new one, Karumi's in the new one, but Katori's not. In fact, she had an assist in the original one, but I would wager pretty heavily that we will be getting a rerun. Now, here's the thing you need to be aware of. If you were not here for the original run of this, you will want to save some free-to-play Iris. Because these units, I don't think are going to be substantial. I don't think they're going to get buffs enough to really stand up. Katori might be able to stand up to current units, maybe. But the older units, let's just look at Toka, for example. Let's go ahead and give her all the buffs and compare her to what we know about modern units. HP is a little behind. Physical attack is way behind. Dex and agility are pretty far behind. And once again, you can see these skills, like highlight physical attack damage, light resist down 30%. That could be 40% these days. No self buffs. Highlight physical damage with temporary strength boost. Low light physical damage and light attack damage plus 25% for all allies. These are atrocious skills. These skills need a major rework to even be relevant. And all the units in here are about on that level. Strength 20% could be a lot higher, and that could be multiple stats. That could be like 3 or 4 stats. Damage received 10% upon penetration. She would need like 25% upon critical and penetration. Dark resist 35%. Notice there's no extra attacks there. There's no like light damage attack when counter or regular attacks. Endurance, agility, index 15% could be like 25%. And amulet resistance 15% could also be significantly higher. I don't know what the percentage on that's are. I want to say 35, but that might be a bit high. So I think personally, and this is my opinion, they would be fools not to rerun the original units. But the buffs have got to be substantial. Now, when is the rerun likely to happen? Well, you guys know we have to wait 3 weeks for the original run of the Data Life 4 event. I think it's highly likely that the rerun will drop at the same time, if not maybe even a week after, if it happens at all. But I really personally feel like it's silly not to drop these units, especially considering there's some fresh CP in here and some collectible units that a lot of people are going to want. It seems ridiculous that it wouldn't happen. But as a global player, you need to be aware, because it's likely going to happen when we get the new event. So as much as I was like, yay, yippee, we got 3 weeks to wait and accrue Iris, if you're going after the old units, you might want to save a little harder. You might want to like push a little bit more and see if you can get more out. Just personal speculation. There's not even a clue out there that this is going to be a thing, but I personally think it might be. So just be aware of this, guys. For now, that is going to be my video. Like, comment, share. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you want to see these units back? But for now, I'll catch y'all in the next one.